Hello, and welcome to Making of Cop Drama Part 2. In this video, I'm going to go through my process for streamlining and cleaning up a Pro Tools project, ease of use in editing and mixing. Now, these steps might seem tedious at first, but if you go through this process in Logic or Pro Tools or whatever DAW you're using, you'll find that it's much easier to get your final mix and master than if you're trying to work through a bunch of clutter. So with that being said, I'm just going to jump right into it. So let's get started. Once I'm in my Pro Tools here, I like to take all of my tracks because I got a fair amount of tracks in this thing right now. And I want to take these and I want to put them into groups. Like I've already got one started for violins. I need to add a couple of things because I created more violin tracks since I created this group. I'm going to add those over there. I'm going to do this for each group of things, but even though I started the violins early, I'm going to take this group and I'm going to do something with my output. I want to take the output from number 14, the last track in the group, and I want to create a new track. And this track is going to be stereo aux input track, and we're going to call this Violins Mix. That's just going to be a mixer that's going to start moving this over to Violins Mix. So then I'm going to do that for all of these. Track, Violins Mix. That means every violin track is now going to go out through that mix track, which means that I can control them as a group, and then I will create another group for all strings that will include the violins, cellos, upright bass, and all that stuff. So I can have groups controlling groups controlling groups. This makes it much easier later on to adjust overall output when I'm trying to figure out how to balance all the different parts and pieces. If I had to do this for each individual violin track, then that would get really cumbersome, especially considering that right now I have 14 violin tracks and I think 6 or so, 8 cello tracks. So if I had to adjust the volume for each one of those individually, when really I just need to pull up the strings, for instance, then after a short while, that's going to get pretty nutty. And I want to avoid pretty nutty. So let's see here. 2 more here. Track, violins mix. And then last one, track, violins mix. And now I will modify this group one more time and add my violins mix to that group. So now I can do myself a favor and hide tracks in group, and there we go. Gets rid of all the violins for the moment. Now let's do our friend the cellos. The reason I like to do it the last one is so that it puts it at the end of the chain later on. So I'm going to do the same thing here. New track, this is going to be a cello mix. Boom, creates that over there. Sets that up to where that goes out to cello mix. And then I do the same thing here where it's out to cello mix. Out to cello mix. The fun and excitement of setting these up. I'm going to do this for each one of the different tracks that I have. And then ultimately I'll end up with a very nice, clean, organized thing. The other thing that I can do about this, by having these on mixed tracks, that certain effects, like for instance reverb or something like that, instead of putting it on every cello track independently, I can run that through the cello mix channel and get all of them together. So now I'm going to select all of these, hit Control G, and then say cellos. There we go. And save that. Got my cellos group. Then I will hide this group. Then I'm going to take my bass and my guitar, and I'm gonna put these next to each other. So actually I'm going to pull the guitar up here under the bass so these two are close together, because I like to put these two together, not the upright bass. I'm going to put that in a strings channel. Oh, look who didn't get added to the list. Well, that one, track, cellos mix, then modify cellos, add cello 8. There we go. And then, whatever, I'll move that later. Hide that again. Oh, whatever, it's fine. I'll put the upright bass into a strings category. But for now, I'm going to choose my guitar track. And I'm going to do the same thing. We create an output track next to this new track. We'll call this Guitars Mix. Because I consider in some ways the electric bass to be, some people call it a bass guitar. And so for that reason, and that reason alone, I am parking it into the guitars category, since you put a strap on and play it in a rock band, and that's cool. Cool with me. Group these, we'll call this guitars, and then at this point I'm also going to take my click track here, and I'm going to say right click and hide and make inactive, and then for the guitars I'm going to hide the tracks. Quickly, I'm going to show the tracks and cellos and then hide the tracks and cellos. That should get rid of my guy. For ease, I'm going to do the shakers next. And I'm going to say new track, and this will be percussion mix. Okay, and that'll put that out to there. And then everything that's got a drum is going to go into percussion mix. That'll be drums, timpanis, etc., etc., etc. Anything that you bang on, I put into my percussion mix track. Let's just get this done really quickly. So many tracks. I like tracks. Lots of tracks is perfectly acceptable. There's no such thing as too many tracks. That's probably not true, but I don't care. All right, so now I'm going to take all my drums, group those, call those percussion, like that, and then hide those tracks, and that leaves my piano and my upright bass. So the piano, you'll never believe what I'm going to do. New track, pianos mix, calling it plural because I got my MIDI track in there, and I might want to add something else later. Do that. And this one gets pianos mix. And then here we go. Pianos mix, group, pianos. And then we will hide those tracks. And lastly, I'm going to show the violin tracks. I'm going to show the cello tracks. Show tracks in group. Then at the end of violin mix, I'm going to take this one. Come on. Oh, it's going to be one of those days. This I'm going to take, and I'm going to have the violins mix go out to a new track called strings mix. Now I'm not going to put all the violins on violins mix. I just want the mixer for that to go out, and then I will hide. Wait, no, leave that alone. Then I'm going to find the cellos mix. Cellos mix. I'm going to have that one output to strings mix. And then lastly, I'm going to have the upright bass output to strings mix. There we go. Now the catch here is that I have to be careful with how I do my reverbs, because those will now be gone. I don't want to double those up, but that's okay. Last bit of business that I'm going to do here is I'm going to go through this list and find everything that says mix, cello mix, violin mix, string mix, piano mix, percussion mix. Now I'm going to group those into something called mixers. Last but not least, I'm going to show all tracks, show tracks in group. Then I don't want to, I'll hide that again. So that should be everything that we've got in here. And at the end of percussion mix, I'm going to create a new track, and this one is going to be a stereo track, and it's going to be a master fader. I don't need to rename that because I want it to be master. So now, I probably should have created the master earlier. Sometimes I do this and I forget. I'm going to go into the mix tracks, I'm going to modify, and I'm going to add master shader to master fader, not shader, to that, and then I'm going to do the same thing to pianos group. I want to modify this and add the master. Yep. The reason that I'm doing this is because later on, when I start to work on individual tracks, I want their mixer track, but I also want to keep that master track in any group that I'm working on. Was that just percussions? Probably it was. That way, I'm not constantly having to find my master. If I'm doing something that requires me to make adjustment to the master track and I'm working on the guitars mix, then at least it is there. Modify, master. Lastly, find out real quick. Add the master, and then just to double check that I did this in cellos. Modify, and there it is. So, okay, right now I have my basic organization done. So if I click on mixers and say show only tracks in group, then I should have all the mixers. Allows me to blend these together however I want. So for instance, I'm going to hit play, and then I'm going to do some quick sliding examples. Oh. Get rid of our violins, but then see, by mixing them here, I can control entire groups without having to go in and individually change every one of the strings. So that's the advantage of doing this. The next part of how I'm going to organize this is to go into, we'll start with the violins. We're going to go into each one of these, and I'm going to duplicate. Actually, I think I can do this really simply by selecting that and then saying duplicate, and then it creates a duplicate of every one of the tracks that I have here. Check this off, and the reason for doing that is so that as I edit, I always have a clean version of what's going on before. So if I wanted to, for instance, chop this up, then I can cut it apart, and I can go to any one of the clean tracks and choose options from there without actually, it's not really destructive, but without destroying those tracks at all. So I do that for each one. They're all getting named 5, but that's okay. So now I'll do the same thing for the cellos. Go in here, and oh, why did that cello get a 5? Oh, probably because it already was. Probably did a lot of takes of that. Each one of these got relatively low. So now, oh, and I'm going to move this down because it's bugging me. There we go. Now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to say duplicate, and then these will all get a 6. That's great. Guitars, let's do the same thing here. Show only tracks in group. And then I will say here, a duplicate. So they're all going to get a 2. That's great. Same thing for percussion, show percussion, and then we'll take the one with the most tracks and say duplicate. There we go. Pianos is next. Show only tracks and groups like that. Go with this, duplicate. And so that gives me a secured track to edit on.
Well, that concludes part 2 of the Making of Cop Drama series. I hope I was able to share some tips or tricks that will help you in your own music editing process. And in the next video, I'm going to get into the weeds of how I take a raw recording and edit it into the final mix and master. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe on my YouTube channel, and go to www.adamdbenson.com/learning for more videos on everything from visual effects and music editing to programming, as well as some other fun stuff that you'll find on there. Also be sure to go to my Patreon account at www.patreon.com/sleep-deprived-productions and subscribe there, and remember that your subscription goes to help keeping this channel alive. So I appreciate your support, and until next time, I will see you in the next video.